Mark and I arrived at our hotel in Paris on June 9th. After a brief nap and a bite of dinner, we watched the sun go down over the River Seine. By the next morning, we headed out for an adventure of our own making. From near the Eiffel Tower, we decided to spend a few hours at the French Army Museum. Within its walls are the Museum of Artillery, founded in 1795 after the French Revolution, and the Museum of History, created in 1896 following the Paris World Fair. More than 500,000 artifacts are organized in historical collections, allowing a chronological tour from ancient times through the end of World War II. By early evening, we were on our way with a fun bunch of crazy new friends to a welcome reception and orientation tour of Paris. On Sunday morning, we were off to Rouen. Rouen is Normandy's historic and cultural capital. The Rouen Cathedral is as magnificent as Moen's paintings depicted. The Grosse Horloge clock tower and France's oldest inn, the La Grande, have their own stories to tell, and it was here that Joan of Arc was burnt at the stake. Sitting on the English Channel is the harbour town of Honfleur. Its narrow lanes and colorful shop fronts have long attracted artists who have immortalized its natural beauty on canvas. We sure enjoyed our outdoor cafe and a tasty lunch. Bayeux was the first town liberated in mainland France following the D-Day invasion. British troops entered Bayeux without difficulty on the morning of June 7th. On June 14, 1944, General de Gaulle landed by torpedo boat and made his way to Bayeux, where he was acclaimed by the local population. Bayeux Cathedral is a national monument of Norman Romanesque architecture and was consecrated July 14, 1077. While there, we also took in the Bayeux Tapestry, a unique artifact which depicts the conquest of England by William, Duke of Normandy, at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. Today we visited the beaches of Normandy and the American Cemetery to pay tribute to the brave souls who lost their lives on D-Day, June 6, 1944. One couldn't help to sense the terror and triumph our Allied forces must have felt as they set foot on mainland Europe that day. Pointe du Hoc was a strategic point in the German defenses on the Normandy coast. The mission to take it was given to the 2nd Ranger Battalion. Under the command of Lieutenant Colonel James Rudder, the soldiers achieved the incredible feat of reaching the top in a few minutes despite the slope being very slippery, the climbing ropes made very heavy by seawater, and the intense fire from defenders. In a lunar landscape full of deep craters, the fierce battle which ensued was even bloodier than the climb. Today, the site still bears the traces of the German artillery battery, as well as deep scars from the fierce fighting that took place here on June 6th and 7th, 1944, which cost the lives of 135 Rangers. Beach was a real trap for the troops of the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions. The first assault wave was brutally cut down, while the second left the beach strewn with wounded and dead and broken equipment. Eventually, drawing on the last of their resources, the soldiers managed to climb the cliff-like slopes overlooking the beach and negotiate the barbed wire. Towards midday, they began to breach the German defenses, and so the battle swung in the Allies' favor. Marsh became one of 2 artificial harbors for the D-Day landings. Temporary jetties of prefabricated concrete supports, steel spans, and floating piers were towed across the channel in sections and aligned perpendicularly to the beach. Marsh thus became one of the principal offloading areas for troops and supplies until permanent harbors could be repaired. The remains of this artificial harbor are still seen today. Later in the day, to settle our nerves, we took on a fresh batch of cider and a typical meal of traditional Norman flavors. They were all wonderful. On her emerald coastline, we discovered St. Marlo's privateer past. We walked her medieval ramparts and marveled at her aristocratic homes. Then we learned about her famous son, Jacques Cartier, who claimed today's Canada for the French. With great anticipation, we readied ourselves for tomorrow's visit at Mont Saint-Michel. Here's the view from our hotel lawn. Today we climbed all 350 stairs of this impressive medieval Benedictine abbey. Dating to the early 8th century, and from the year 966 onwards, the Dukes of Normandy, followed by many French kings, supported its expansion throughout the Middle Ages. It became a renowned center of learning, attracting some of the greatest minds and manuscript illuminators in Europe. Welcomed as lunch guests on this day in a beautiful 17th century private home, we enjoyed the warm hospitality, good food, and a magnificent setting. In the Loire Valley, there's the old town of Tours with its Basilica of St. Martin and a rich history of the Renaissance kings. Amboise. It was here that benefactor King Francois I hosted Leonardo da Vinci in the last years of da Vinci's life. This manor house was Leonardo's former home, where he lived until his death in 1519. Foremost in our Da Vinci Museum experience was learning about his extraordinary inventions. None were ever built until IBM took on the task of turning Da Vinci drawings into working models. Just down the street is Chateau Amboise, the grand 15th century residence of King Charles VIII, featuring Leonardo da Vinci's tomb, as well as royal chambers, gardens, and underground passageways. At Chateau Chenonceau, we saw priceless collections of Renaissance furniture, tapestries, and masterpieces by Rubens and Tintoretto. It was founded on pilings of a mill in 1513 or 1515 and completed in 1522. Representing transitional architecture between Gothic and Renaissance, Chenonceau was extensively restored in the 19th century. Its storied history spans the lives of Francis I, Henry II, and Catherine de' Medici, all of whom took active roles in its construction. Following a late afternoon breather at our hotel, we were off to the vineyards and some wine tasting, followed by a delightful evening in a cave restaurant. There was an abundance of great food, wine, and musical favorites. Troubadours we were not, but with the help of Mark and others, we all sang our hearts out. At the crowd's insistence, even tour director Nicholas and driver Peter joined the fun. It was such a joyous evening. Even the bus took an extra round around the traffic circle as we headed home for the night. En route back to Paris, we stopped briefly in Chartres for a group photo. Chartres Cathedral is regarded as one of the most authentic and complete works of religious architecture from the early 13th century. Back in the City of Lights, we found Basilica Sacré-Cœur on the summit of Montmartre. Sacré-Cœur, or Sacred Heart, offers magnificent views of the city and stands as a political and cultural monument of national penitence for supposed excesses in the Community of Paris of 1871. Also tucked away in Montmartre is a famous artist village which previously hosted the likes of Van Gogh, Picasso, and Toulouse-Lautrec. The canvases were still wet today as we watched apprentices at work. Following our farewell dinner, we saw the glory of Paris from the Seine River with its unmatched views of Notre Dame Cathedral and the Eiffel Tower. And so we said goodbye to this beautiful city and concluded our 8-day Treasures of France tour. But as we go our separate ways, homeward bound, we take with us many new, beautiful experiences and wonderful memories of France. Thank you to all our new friends who traveled this path of learning and laughter together.